Welcome to CPAC Now, America UnCanceled. I'm Mercedes Schlapp. Joining me today, Matthew Faraci, founder of Gideon 300. Matthew, thank you for joining me. We're going to talk about what's happening in Israel. You just came back from the war zone and want to get your updates as to what you saw on the ground.
Okay, well, Mercy, first of all, thanks for having me. And not only that, thank you for keeping the light on this important issue. And actually, speaking of light, you mentioned something on Hanukkah. That's cool.
Absolutely. Happy Hanukkah. I should have started there.
Happy Hanukkah
I was
to everybody.
focusing to work, and then all of a sudden, you're right. Let's talk about happy Hanukkah to our Jewish sisters. You know, I always say I think it's important for Christians to learn about what Hanukkah represents. So why don't you share with us what happens during this time in the Jewish faith?
Well, first of all, one fun fact for Christians is that the only place that Hanukkah is mentioned in the Bible is in the Christian Bible in the New Testament. I wish I could quote chapter and verse for you, but there's a scene which many Christians will be familiar with, where Jesus is going to Jerusalem, and it essentially says he's going to celebrate the Festival of Lights, and that makes sense because Hanukkah took place before he came, but not that far. Right. And I'm going to get my history wrong, but maybe a couple hundred years, because the Hasmonean dynasty, the Jews that actually ruled Israel before the Romans took over, that was before Jesus. So by the time he came, it was already a Jewish custom. So I think for Christians, it's a beautiful thing. You know, light a candle. Listen, I saw Dr. Phil. It was a beautiful video. Dr. Phil is lighting candles for specific hostages who are still being held in Gaza right now. And it was so beautiful and so moving. And so Hanukkah is about light. And in a dark world, we really need light. The long story short is there's certain people I've seen out there who are talking about Hanukkah who have no idea what it's about, kind of like From the River to the Sea, where they can't name what river and what sea. Mercy, we know all about that.
Right.
But Hanukkah's really, it's funny how history repeats itself, because what Hanukkah is really about is it's about a time when there was a dictator after Alexander the Great who wanted to just destroy not only the Jewish people, but he wanted to destroy Judaism. And so he banned studying the Torah. He banned praying. He banned all of the practices that we're used to in Jewish life. And the Jewish people had to fight back to preserve not only themselves, but to preserve the Torah, to preserve the Bible, to preserve the ideas. And here we are again, a little more than 2,000 years later, and we're doing the exact same thing all over again.
Yeah.
So Hanukkah has a lot of significance.
Yeah, and I think during this period of time of reflection, and the period of time of knowing that we need to understand that there needs to be light in these moments of darkness, that there needs to be hope, even when it's the most evil and barbaric actions that we've seen, I think, in our lifetime. Really, I think for now, I think for the Jewish people, as you were in Israel, how do you think they're being able to celebrate Hanukkah knowing that there is just so much tragedy that has surrounded Israel and the Jewish people in the last 2.5 months?
Israel is having right now, Mercy, something that America needs desperately. There's a spiritual revival, and the spiritual revival is particularly among the young people and among many of the young people that are serving in the IDF. It's stunning to see. There are people that don't have any sort of religious affiliation at all, and they're participating in a lot of the ancient customs that we have always participated in for thousands of years, and with so much, like we say, nachas, with so much enthusiasm. And the country has changed. Yeah. I mean, the best way to translate it is there's a spiritual revival going on, and you contrast that with our young people here in America, and that's what we desperately need. So there is that ability to celebrate it, first of all, because of the understanding of history, the understanding of being part of history, and the understanding that ultimately our salvation is not going to come from the IDF. It's not going to come from the politicians. It's not going to come from America. It's going to come from God.
Yes.
And that recognition is widespread among the Jewish people. And look, Israel and America are linked So my prayer is that that spiritual revival will find its way here, because when Israel and America are strong, like, you know, like Reagan said, America's great because America's good, and if we ever stop being good, we'll stop being great. Well, we're not very good right now. And when we can bring that goodness back to our own country, we can transform the world together with Israel. And that's a vision that I'm excited about seeing.
Right. Well, we've been here at CPAC talking about the war in Israel. It's been something I've interviewed Julie Strauss-Levin, who you know well, and really, I don't want to stop talking about it, because I think people need to understand that this war is really, talk about critical right now, and the impact that it's having, not just in Israel, but here in the United States, because you're watching so many of these pro-Hamas protests happening here in major cities, basically demonizing the Jewish people, calling Israel a colonizer, and just applauding the barbaric actions by Hamas. Matthew, what is happening here in America? Why have we lost so much ground that we've seen this rise in anti-Semitism?
Well, first of all, Mercy, you know, it's funny. When I was there, I asked to go down to Kfar Aza, which was the kibbutz that was hardest hit, and also the site of the Nova Music Festival. And a bunch of people, even Israelis, told me, "Are you nuts?" And I said, "Look, I'm here. It happened. I have to see it." I went to the same place Elon Musk was taken. And I felt like I have to see it. I have to face the music. I have to see what took place. And even though we have the photos and the video footage, and this is why I'm glad you're showing my photos and videos, Mercy, I felt like I'm a real person who was just there. I walked there with the IDF. I saw it for myself. Let me tell you what the most eerie thing was. It happened on October 7th. Time froze on October 7th. So when you walk around this village, you see there was three things that struck me in particular. I went into one house, and this girl had her clothing on a rack with a cute little hat and looked like something my daughter would do. But there were bullet holes through all of her clothes. There was outside of her house, there was a washing machine, and the laundry from October 7th was still in the washing machine. Yeah. So you get this sense that this lady was living a normal life, and look what happened to her. These are real people. And the one that struck me the most was a house that had been burned. And one of the things the terrorists did was people went into their safe rooms in the back of their houses. And if the terrorists could not get them out of their safe rooms, they would set the house on fire. Oh. These people would either run out of the house and get shot, or they would just burn them alive, right? Which is beyond description. And what I saw, Mercy, was a little boy. I took a picture of it. You'll see a little boy's little toy soccer ball. And all I could think of was that little boy was just playing, just playing like my kids and your kids. Yeah. And now he's gone. Where is he? What happened to him? There's bullet holes all over the front of his house. These are real people. I heard the story of, I took a video of this, of one home where the father and a daughter had been killed, and a mother and I believe two of her children have been taken hostage. Right. Thank God they've been released. And when they were taken hostage, the boys were forced to watch gruesome videos of October 7th, and little boys. And when they didn't want to look, the terrorists put a gun to their head and said, "You're going to finish watching these videos." They weren't given adequate food. They weren't given adequate water. These are real people, Mercy. This is not some abstract news story. This is real people that you and I could could speak to. Right. You know what I'm saying? And that changes your whole perspective on the world. And I feel like still a lot of Americans don't understand the brutality of what took place and how we got here. It's beyond description.
Right. And it was why it was so important when you had sent me those photos and the videos and we're playing them here, Matthew, that I felt it was so important to have your perspective being on the ground there. What was your sense when you were talking to the IDF forces? Do they feel that they've got the support they need, obviously, from Prime Minister Netanyahu? And what's their sense about what the U.S. is doing Do they feel they're getting enough support from the United States? As we know, President Biden and his administration, they've been more along the lines of supporting a ceasefire after ceasefire. Quite frankly, I think we need a full eradication of Hamas. But what was your sense when you were on the ground?
Yeah, well, couple of things. The IDF soldiers are absolutely determined. And I want you to think about this, Mercy, that, let's say somebody lives in Virginia. We'll just use that analogy. You live in Virginia and you're fighting a war to protect your family in Maryland. Okay?
Yeah.
So these soldiers are fighting miles from where their houses are, miles from where their families are, just miles, right? In theory, they could hop a helicopter and be home in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. When the IDF planes fly over Israel, it only takes a couple minutes to get. So I want to give you the sense of scale of how close this fighting is. And so when you're fighting that close to protecting your own family, they are determined, they are resolved, and they are going to finish this, whether America supports them finishing it or not.
Right.
They don't have a choice. You can't leave these savages, and I'm using that word because I can't think of a better one. We just saw a video. I was just on Twitter from Hamas a couple days ago saying, let's kill every Jew. Let's keep this going. We've heard things from Hamas about let's kill the Saturday people and then we'll kill the Sunday people. They are, yes. They want another October 7th. They're ready to go. So only the U.S. media can somehow magically ignore that fact and
unreal.
Focus somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
They're
unreal.
Saying it. This is not like it's not hidden.
Well, and we saw the Islamic State. They went after a Catholic service or mass in the Philippines and killed people there. I mean, this is not just going to stop in Israel. This is going to expand not only to the Jewish people, but to Christians and Catholics as well. You mentioned, Matthew, you actually went to the site where the Nova Music Festival occurred, and obviously the horrific slaughter of innocent lives in that area. What did you learn when you were there?
All they have left is they have, it's so hard to even process, for my brain to process. All they had left was, you see the pictures here, just photos of each of the young people, beautiful young people that got killed at this concert. I was told that hundreds of cars were buried because many people were like so burned in their cars that they couldn't get their remains out. I mean, it is, and all you see is this empty field with these photos of these beautiful young people. And you just, again, your brain has a hard time understanding. I saw it, but I had a hard time understanding what I was looking at. Yeah. And it's just a brutality that's hard to imagine. And so if you zoom out, Mercy, what's sort of the bigger picture here? So you've got first of all, let's go back a second. Americans are being attacked. Okay, the news is not talking about this. Last I checked, there's almost 80 attacks on U.S. personnel in the Middle East. Drones, missiles, all kinds of stuff. If your family was being attacked, wouldn't you respond? Now, I know that people say there's an argument for restraint, but U.S. personnel are being threatened, and the only language that people speak over there is strength.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So words, please don't do that. That doesn't resonate in that. It's a very rough neighborhood, and that doesn't resonate in that part of the world. And so Americans, we are under attack by Iran, by the Houthi rebels in Yemen.
That's right.
And by the forces aligned with Hamas and Hezbollah. So lest we think that this is just Israel, America's personnel in the region are under threat. And a lot of the folks in the IDF were wondering, you're going to let them keep doing that to you? Like, when is it? I just read that a Norwegian ship, there was a report that a Norwegian ship had been hit. A French ship had fired upon. So there's all kinds of stuff going on. And if we continue to bury our head in the sand, we're only going to get the same result that Israel got from ignoring these threats.
It's not only bury our head in the sand, but you have literally the leftist media barely covering any of this. In fact, they're more obsessed with this issue of how do they protect these pro-Hamas, terrorist supporters here in the United States, which I find appalling. I'm not sure how you could have even allowed for such propaganda to have seeped in especially into our youth. But we have seen this lack of basically strength coming from our academic institutions. We just saw that Harvard president Claudine Gay is going to remain in her post as president.
How is that possible?
I know. This comes after the Harvard Corporation, the university's governing body, issued a statement of support for Gay Tuesday morning, and that she's the right leader to help our community heal and to address the very serious social issues. These are people who cannot even define or even push back on genocide of the Jews. I mean, seriously, Matthew, how far have we gone? How much have we lost here in the U.S. that we're losing this argument in terms of protecting the Jewish students, Jewish professors, and Jewish families?
So I grew up, Mercy, with stories from my grandparents of the Holocaust and what had happened and different family members that had died in different concentration camps and things like that. And I remember as a kid thinking to myself, okay, this is horrible, but thank God the world knows about it. And because the world knows about it, in my lifetime, I won't see anything approaching that. And now I've had this cold splash of reality, because remember, the Holocaust didn't just start one day. It started with this kind of rhetoric, then it escalated to violence, then it escalated to genocide, right? Ironically, the thing they always accuse you of the thing they're doing, right? So they say Israel's trying to commit genocide. That's because there's an attempted genocide against all the Jewish people in the world. And it's I think a lot of us, Mercy, like you and me, that have been following what's going on at college campuses, we knew this was coming, but there's a lot of people that were surprised to see that it was coming. And I am stunned that she's remaining in her position. But here's my take, and some people may take issue with this.
Right.
I'm a free speech person. So I believe you say whatever you want to say. The minute that turns from you saying into something else, then we got a problem. But at the same time, if people at Harvard had the freedom of speech, then we have the freedom to demand that elected officials at the state and local level, we wanted to defund the police. They wanted to defund the police. Let's defund Harvard.
Right.
Let's not give any state or federal funds to Harvard. Second, let's not donate any money to Harvard. And third, why would anybody in their right mind, everybody throws this word hate around. Why would anybody in their right mind send a child, a student, to that school? I don't care, Jewish or not Jewish. Why would you send somebody to a school that not only that doesn't, even though these people have the right to free speech, the school can also exercise some moral clarity. And you know, Mercy, that on 1,000 other issues, when somebody feels triggered at Harvard, they give them 2 seconds to go after that young conservative on campus and attack them for espousing any kind of traditional American views. But students calling for the genocide of Jews, that's okay. How is that in any logical world, how does that pass muster? And so we just have to stop supporting these institutions, period, and stop believing the lie that because we send these kids to these institutions, we're setting them up for a better tomorrow. No, we're not. We don't need you, Harvard. We don't need you, UPenn. This is America. We'll, like Elon Musk said, at this point with education, if you're smart enough, you can learn almost everything you need to learn for free.
That's right.
Or you can go to a Hillsdale or a Patrick Henry or another great school that's actually going to develop your brain instead of turning you into a Marxist.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think that really what we've seen in these college campuses, it's really upsetting because you do find that there's a lack of understanding by these students. They're just following the crowd. They're just listening to TikTok and social media. And that propaganda coming from Hamas has really penetrated our campuses and, some of these more radicalized Democrat congressional leaders. I do hope the Jewish community, many of them who are liberal voters, reevaluate their vote for next year. Do you think they'll wake up? Because I'm curious. Do you think that they're going to change their, it's funny. I was just at a restaurant and we were sitting there and I was overhearing a gentleman talk and he's like, I'm Jewish and I just can't believe that these university presidents were, wouldn't just be so hard and critical on the genocide comment of Jews. So I have to believe this has to be having impact on Jewish voters.
Well, first of all, just back to your earlier point, Mercy, which was a very important one. It's not only the students, the professors are the ringleaders.
Yes, that's right.
So remember,
Right.
when I was in college, I had certain professors that were heroes to me because
Yeah.
they knew more than I did. I looked up to them. If my professor was standing up at a rally or speaking in class to me and saying, "Hey, we got to go, we got to free Palestine," that's going to have a big impact. So this is again where the institutions can step in and go, "I'm sorry, you advocating for genocide as a professor, you're out, you're fired."
Yeah.
Why can't we do that? Okay. As far as the Jewish community, you're right. And I do think that the Jewish community is waking up and understanding finally that, I remember my grandmother's whole worldview was that she wanted to know where somebody stood on Israel because she felt that said so much about their character. I remember
right.
she voted.
Yeah.
She was a Democrat who voted for Reagan. For that, she was a Reagan Democrat for that very reason. And I do think the Jewish community is waking up. I think it's hard when you look at institutions that, Jews have done very well in academia, right? Like it's been a home for us. And so I feel like when you're welcomed into somebody's home and then suddenly you're unwelcome, it takes a minute to go, wait, Mercy, we're friends,
Yes.
and you've had me over for dinner for like 5 times.
Yeah.
And now your kids are telling me, get out. Like
Yeah.
it takes a minute to realize. But I think that the significance of the calling for the genocide, that this is no holds barred for a lot of Jewish people. I think for the majority of Jewish people, they are seeing this going, wow, this is a paradigm shift, and we're going to have to shift our thinking with this.
I know, you're absolutely right. Well, Matthew Faraci, it's a great honor to have you on our show. Thank you for really just being able to share your insight, and obviously and these videos and photos I just think it's just so tragic. And we pray for all the Israeli people who are under attack. But we know that we do have light, and we are going to be hopeful.
Amen.
And we
Amen.
will defeat the evil and the darkness. So thank you so much, Matthew.
Mercy, if I can say 2 last things.
Yes.
The first thing is I want to thank you because you and Matt have a lot of courage, and the team at CPAC has a lot of courage. You guys, almost like it's an issue, you find the people that are getting pushed back on, and you stand up for them. And that takes a lot of courage. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your courage on this issue and so many other issues where you guys you're not afraid. You take a stand. And if more people could be like that, our country will be in a different situation. The second thing is I want to remind everybody that's watching that just to take this with you as you pray, that the Bible tells us a lot about what God said, and it tells us a lot about what he's going to do. But what we don't know a lot about is what God does now. What's God doing right now? And the book of Deuteronomy has a beautiful quote where it says that God's eyes are on Israel from the beginning of the year to the end. So we know that Israel is important to him. And I love America. I love Israel as well. I love both countries. And if America wants to continue to have his favor and his blessing and be a light to the world, like Israel is a light to the nations. And if we want to continue, I mean, you can see as America's weak, look at what's happening around the world.
Yes.
The world is a terrible place without a strong America. And if we want God to bless us, then we have to be blessing as a country. We have to be blessing the place where his eyes are on from the beginning of the year to the end.
That is absolutely right. What a perfect ending. Matthew Faraci, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mercy.
And thank you all for watching America UnCanceled. Don't forget, you can catch us on your podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, or go to cpac.org and make sure to share it with your friends. God bless. Happy Hanukkah.